So welcome into King Whale's album review party. Today we are talking about Lupe Fiasco's Samurai, which just dropped. Oh, I should have done the drum roll. That would have been a better idea. Man, I missed that. I missed it. It's okay. We're talking about Lupe Fiasco's Samurai, which just came out a week ago. About a week ago.
I think so, about a week ago.
About a week ago. Okay. So yeah, it just came out, and we are super excited because it is a fantastic album. Absolutely fantastic. Um, yeah, just about a week ago. And I'm like, there's so many thoughts. I don't even know where to begin. But first, let's say hello to the people and how everyone's doing. So, Ty, how you been? How's life?
Life is fantastic that I got more Lupe Fiasco in my life. How
That's a
could I
good
be
feeling.
doing bad if a new Lupe album drops? Even if it is very short. Like
Yeah,
it's
I think this is his
it's still a good time.
I think this is his shortest album that he's ever done.
It almost feels like an EP in length.
Because
Like
it's
it's
only 8 songs.
only 8 tracks.
Yeah, and we'll
It,
talk a little bit about, why it was so short and stuff like that coming up pretty soon.
how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm very excited. In Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where I'm located, it's a pretty dreary day. There's still enough light coming in so that way you can see me okay.
Mhm.
Um, but it's pretty dreary out, It's sky's gray, not much going on. But it's a beautiful day to be a fan of Lupe Fiasco. That's all I gotta say. Um, I've got a bunch of gigs coming up. I don't think I've ever had these many gigs coming up ever. Like I've got two next week, and then after that, I think I have two or three more. And I'm like, man, I'm running out of like calendar space for all this stuff.
How
Um,
good does that feel to
it's
fight like the FOMO? Does it feel good?
it does feel good. It does feel good. I have to admit it. I have to admit it. I'm
Because
excited.
now you can be a guy who says like, "Oh, I'm sorry, my calendar's all booked up,"
Oh, I'm
or
sorry.
"Oh,
I gotta
sorry, I
get
gotta
in.
check my calendar real quick."
Yeah, to be one of those people. Um, all right. So we're talking about Samurai. So, let's just jump right in as we always do. So, do you have any high moments? What are the highest moments for you in Samurai?
Oh man, there's a lot of there's a lot of highs. I'd say this is mostly comprised of highs.
Agreed.
Uh, for me, the titular opening track, Samurai, really great. Mumble rap is really great. I really enjoyed the second single, Cake, and number one, Headband. Those are probably
Hmm.
like my biggest like standouts to me. Everything else is far from bad, but just a little bit more forgettable. Um,
Hmm.
I do call out the hook of palaces. Something about like we think of ourselves as like these fortresses of stone, but we're really palaces of flesh. Something about that, like that word picture, just really clicked with me. I really, really love that. Even if I don't necessarily vibe with the whole song as strongly, I really love that word picture. It was very gallant-esque.
Yeah, I was gonna say it kind of gives me like Bone and Tissue vibes
Yeah,
from
exactly. That's
Ology. Just a
yeah.
monument. Yeah, that's literally what he says. A monument to bone and tissue. It's like the exact. I'm like,
It's
Lupe, you had to listen to some Gallant before you put that out.
and you
Or
know what? Good on you, man. He
good
probably
on you,
listened to our episode talking about ology, and then he was
bro.
like, I should probably check him out.
What if Lupe and Gallant got together to make a sequel to Palaces and Bone and Tissue? Bone and Palaces, Palaces of Tissue. Like,
Ooh, palaces of tissue. I don't think you would survive.
mm-mm.
Like you would be too excited. I
The
think you
world
would
is not
pass
ready.
out.
Oh, I would.
Mm-mm.
Yes, I would most definitely. I mean, Gallant's already doing stuff with Terrace Martin, so it's only a matter of time before he
He's
collaborates
working.
with Lupe.
He's working his way.
Like he's going through all of my favorite artists and influences, so he's gonna get there. He's already worked with John
Mm-hmm.
Legend. Like it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
happen. It's gonna happen. Manifesting it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um. So yeah, I mean, I agree. This is a fantastic album. Samurai, I think to me is a standout track. I loved it so much that I'm working on a cover of it myself. It's not quite done yet, but stay tuned. I'll be posting some stuff about it soon. But yeah, Samurai to me is a standout. I also love Palaces for the, the I feel like Palaces is probably like the deeper song, the deepest song. And
Hmm.
even for like Lupe standards, like it's
Hmm.
not as deep as like Lupe standards. It's still incredibly deep, but like again, when you think of Lupe, Tetsuo and Youth especially, his song Body of Work, like we're here almost 10 years later and there are still lines people are dissecting from
Hmm.
Body of Work on that one
Hmm.
song because he goes so abstract with it. So
Hmm.
he obviously has like the bar set very, very high for when it comes to like that kind of lyrical.
Hmm.
And like I said, Palaces is still great, but it's like I feel like for almost any other rap artist, it would be like, whoa, Palaces, like you just blew my mind with that. Like if J. Cole ever got that introspective, we'd all be like, what? And if Drake ever did it, we'd all be like, okay, Drake, who wrote that song for you?
Hmm. Who's the ghostwriter for this
Who's the
one?
ghostwriter on that one? But Lupe is like, oh yeah, that's really deep. It's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
it's still so like I love this album. I think it's definitely Lupe. I think he's flexing more of his technical rap skills,
Hmm.
and he is his obviously he's still lyrical, like number one lyricist in the game ever. I will never come off that horse. But I feel like on this album particularly, he's really trying to stress how good of a technical rapper he is. Because like to me,
Hmm.
the best technical rapper is Eminem. The way that he can make things rhyme and switch up a flow is unparalleled. And I feel like Lupe is kind of experimenting with that side on Samurai and not quite getting as because like Samurai does have a message to it. I think you got more of a message from it than I did, which is actually pretty funny. Um, but I think it's more just about having a good time and just rapping. But he also has some deeper cuts on here too. But yeah, I agree. So
Like,
Samurai is the top one for me. Um, Number one headband. I loved mumble rap. Um, I even tried like when I was writing the verse that I was gonna cover for Samurai, I tried rapping it over mumble rap, and it literally fit perfectly.
yeah.
And I feel like that's a testament to like, because usually you can't just take a verse from one song and then rap it to another one. Like you
Hmm.
gotta the beat if the beat doesn't line up. But it's like
Hmm.
Lupe stuck with like a very specific style with this album.
Hmm.
And I think you're right. It's short, but I feel like it's also kind of like the perfect length for this style. Like if he was gonna do this style, I don't think it could have gone much longer. Like the Cool was like what 17 tracks. I don't think he
Right.
could go 17 tracks with just this exact same style over and over and over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because even by the end of this album, I felt like, and to me, this is where the album is at its lowest. It's that I love, I will always love jazz rap,
Hmm.
uh, but I feel like this almost at times feels like a lo-fi jazz rap inspired production on the
Hmm.
album, and to like a fault, to the degree that it makes tracks that otherwise would have felt memorable feel unmemorable in a way that is very anti Lupe Fiasco, because I feel like
Yeah.
Lupe Fiasco has always had this skill of turning like something simple into something like that sticks with you forever. And I think it's something that really gravitates to his fans, that in a very roundabout way feels like he's trying something new by not really going full Lupe
Hmm.
in this album. It's good, but it doesn't quite reach the highs that I guess one may hope for with a rapper as skilled as him. I will say on the contrary, though, I find his storytelling to be he's on the top of his game when it
Hmm.
comes to just storytelling, even if there isn't necessarily a deeper message. Even if you just look at it from like a surface level perspective, I think there's really a hole in a lot of music where we just don't hear musicians who are so skilled at just telling a story, like line to line, like the motion of like the written word or the spoken word to
Hmm.
convey like events happening. As simple as it seems, like some tracks like mumble rap reads and listens almost like a novel or an audiobook at times because he paints the story with the detail that like the author of a book would. And it's something that like it reminds me of like classic singer-songwriters. Like when I hear Lupe Fiasco here, I'm also thinking of like Billy Joel and Bob Dylan. Like classic like folksy songwriters or like Sufjan Stevens. Like I'm thinking
Hmm.
of these people who are so masterful at just writing a story, emotional impact aside, just very skilled at writing that story. And I think Lupe, to me, might be one of the best in rap to just pen stories, period.
I
Whatever
think,
reson
yeah.
everyone resonates to things differently on the emotional side, but I think
Hmm.
just as like a wordsmith in the sense of composing and writing a story, I'm always blown away by whatever he puts out.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And to me, that's one of the fundamental aspects of hip hop. And like for me personally, that's even one of the hardest ones for me to grasp or for me to capture. Like whenever, like most of my songs aren't like storytelling songs. So whenever I have to do a song or like a song fits better if I'm telling a story of either something I went through or trying to craft a story, it's
Hmm.
always super hard for me to like put it together in a way that rhymes because I feel like I have to make it interesting and lyrical. And sometimes when
Hmm.
you're telling a story, you just don't. You just got to say what happens and just make
Hmm.
it rhyme. And it's like that's like the hardest thing. Like I can come up with similes and metaphors and like do this technical
Hmm.
flow stuff, all cool. But like coming up with a story and making it rhyme is the literally hardest thing for me to do. That's why I usually pretty much
Hmm.
don't do it. Like if you listen to any of my songs, I really don't have many storytelling songs like at all.
Hmm.
And I feel like there was a song called Alarm Clock by Static Selecta. And if you ever want to listen to a song that just describes the three aspects of hip hop, listen to Alarm Clock because the first aspect is Absol, and he goes in lyrically, like dropping so many metaphors, so many similes, so many. It's absolutely insane. Like Absol is one of the few rappers I think in the industry that could go toe to toe with Lupe on a lyrical basis. And they did on a couple of collaborations that they have. And like Horns
Hmm.
and Thorns is absolutely amazing.
Hmm.
But he showcases the lyrical side of hip hop. And I'm like, there's no one better to do that too. Like, if it's not going to be Lupe, like make it be Absol.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think Absol has more lyrical ability than even Kendrick, which is a huge like bomb drop, and
Hmm.
people will be like, "Whoa, what are you talking about?" But it's true. Just on his features and stuff, like it's true.
Hmm.
Um, Secondly, John Connor. The second verse is a very John Connor has a verse on it on Alarm Clock, and it's very lyric. It's very technically gifted. Like he creates flows, creates different rhythms and stuff that all fit really well over the beat and
Hmm.
are cool. You could tell that like it takes a lot of skill for him to wrap this around. Like Absol's not doing much with his flow necessarily. He's doing more with his words. And John
Hmm.
Connor is just coming up with these triplets, with these syncopated rhythms as he's rapping. And he's not really rapping about anything. He's really just saying how cool he is in just
Hmm.
different ways, but
Hmm.
he does it with all of these. Like I feel like it represents flow, technical ability. That's what Eminem is the king on. Like, and Eminem obviously is a fantastic lyricist, but like his bread and butter is his technical ability, and like that's what John Connor is highlighting in that. And then the third verse, a long way for me to get to like the actual point. The third verse is Logic just telling a story about how he grew up and what it was like. And it
Hmm.
was like, again, we kind of forget how important that storytelling aspect is.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm like, yeah, and I forget that like, I usually don't think of Lupe in the storytelling category as like
Hmm.
that being one of the things he's really good at. But yeah, I mean he really is, especially on even on some of his older tracks. He has one on his first album called He Say She Say, where he's describing what it's like for a um for a kid whose father left.
Hmm.
And this is he describes it from the perspective of the father,
Hmm.
the son, and the mother. and each time he does is pretty much the same verse, but he
Hmm.
changes the perspective, so it changes just a little bit.
Hmm.
He does the same thing with he has this song like way like I think it was on Lupe the Jedi, like way back when his early career was starting out. And he
Hmm.
has this track called And He Gets the Girl. And it's
Hmm.
basically about this kid who plays tuba and gets the girl. It's kind of just self-explanatory right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really showcases that like
Heck,
storytelling ability.
even on like his first, and like correct me if I'm wrong, but was not Kick Push his first like
Hmm.
hit? Like
Hmm.
even that song is just a
Straight
good, like
storytelling.
it's a great story
Hmm.
about, like skate culture.
Hmm.
Like it's really good. Like
Yeah.
he from his inception, he's always been an incredibly talented storyteller.
I mean, the cool is a story. Like the entire album itself is literally a story based upon a track from Food and Liquor called The Cool. He took that track
Hmm.
that was a storytelling track and turned it into an entire album. And
Hmm.
then the same with Drogus Wave. It's supposed to be a story about slaves jumping off of the ship and like living in the ocean. I think
Hmm.
the cool story you kind of can follow more clearly than Drogus Wave's story is a
Hmm.
little bit harder to follow.
Hmm.
Um, so like, and even Tetsuo and Youth in its of itself is supposed to be a story. It's like this whole like redemption, like recovery and rebirth arc that like mirrors Jesus. It is a crazy, like if you really delve into like all the theories around Tetsuo and Youth, it
Hmm.
is crazy. Which kind of brings me kind of all the way full circle back is because like my favorite genre of music, if you ask me my favorite genre of music, I will tell you jazz rap, hip hop jazz. Like
Hmm.
you combine my two favorite things about music, and that is
Hmm.
going to be my favorite genre. There is
Hmm.
no no way like that is like that sounds amazing. And then if
Right.
you take my favorite artist and you put him on my favorite genre of music, because Lupe usually doesn't, he's not known for being jazz rap. Like he didn't start off that way.
Hmm.
It's like, well, that seems like a match made in heaven. And I will
Hmm.
absolutely listen to an entire album of that, just like Joe Music in Zion was.
Hmm.
But I think I started to realize that like what I like about Lupe a lot of times is his diversity
Hmm.
because on the cool, each track stands out because they're all different genres of hip hop. Some of them
Hmm.
are rock, some of them interpolate soul, some of them interpolate trap music, some of them interpolate club music. Like High Definition is like this bumping club track, and Lupe
Hmm.
is just effortlessly breezing over it. In Tetsuo and Youth, there's no track that sounds alike. Every single one is a different genre. And he starts, and I think Tetsuo and Youth is when he started experimenting with jazz rap because my favorite song on there, Little Death, is a jazz rap song. And it's absolutely incredible with Nikki Jean on the hook. And like I said, all everything that Lupe weaves, I remember being like, man, I would love to hear a whole album of this from Lupe, of Little Death from Lupe. And that's what we
Hmm.
got with Samurai.
Yeah.
And I feel like what we kind of got with Drill Music and Zion as well.
Hmm.
Um, but even Drill Music and Zion had a little bit more versatility than Samurai. Like overall, I say Drill Music and Zion was jazz rap, but it still had some trap influences. It still had some, like that one. So Autobotto, has a very heavy trap influence.
Right.
Um, and this
Which
one,
it felt like even the diversity of that album felt like it aided with the storytelling that he was
mhm,
trying to do, because he was trying, they felt a lot of those tracks were talking about rap culture and his feelings about the industry as a whole. And so to use different subgenres in the greater genre of hip hop,
yeah.
to be able to tell that, like, worked really well again as a storyteller. Like,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So I definitely think that it kind of makes this album, I'm not going to say like start to sound the same, but I see why I ended up getting capped to 8 songs because again,
mhm,
because he kind of stuck with that jazz rap theme. Um, I don't really think I don't really see like, I wasn't like, when I got to the end of the album, I wasn't like, man, is there more coming? You know what I mean? Like, I felt like he had completed his story, what he needed to tell. And like I said, I don't think you can go for 10 or even 15 tracks of just the same, instrumental. It's the same thing to me with almost any hip hop genre. Like if I hear an album that's just trap music over and over and over again, I'm gonna get bored unless there's like different features and stuff on it. But if it's just the same trap music over and over, like it's just gonna all kind of blend together. So and I think Lupe's lyrical ability helps the tracks not blend together, but they don't stand out as much as an album like Tetsuo and Youth. Everything stands out. Album like The Cool. Just comparing it to Lupe's other works.
Hmm.
Because again, if I'm comparing this album to almost any other hip hop album that came out this year, I mean, it's taken the crown. Like,
Hmm.
let's look at it. Like, to me, like, again, Lupe has set such a high bar. It's like I'm just comparing him to himself. We're talking
Hmm.
about him versus his past. Like, if I talk about any other hip hop album that came out this year, Might Delete Later by J. Cole. Like this album, I feel like this one smokes it. I can't even think of
Hmm.
that many hip hop albums that came out this year. Oh, Michael, and that was did that one win?
No, that was
Oh, that was
last year.
last year. That was last year. Yeah,
We
I'd
talked
have to
about it
look at.
this year, but
We
that
talked about
was
this year.
it
Okay.
came out last year.
I'd have to look at some of the hip hop albums that came out this year. Um, but so far, I mean, this one's easily my top. Like, I really have to look and see.
So
But I mean,
is it sitting at the top of just hip hop or everything for you right now? Is this
oh, like best album of this year.
is this number one for right now? Like off of gut, is it in like the top five? Like where how are you sitting it right now?
I think of the year, I would definitely put it at the top. There's a lot of albums I haven't listened to. Um, but like I got a chance to listen to Vultures by Kanye West and Ty Dolla Sign. This one is way better than that. Like
Yeah.
Vultures wasn't that great. I listened to parts of We Don't Trust You by Future and Metro Boomin, and We Still Don't Trust You, and those I would need to listen to. I'm not really worried about 21 Savage's American Dream. Maybe Benny the Butcher's Everyone Can't Go. That would be one to check
Oh,
out.
that's
And
a
maybe
good
Vince
album.
Staples. I'll have to
Benny
check
the
out both of those.
Man, too
Um,
many people sleep on Benny the Butcher.
is what I've been hearing.
He is
Yeah,
such a good artist, man.
yeah. But
He did a track with Black Thought that is I'm forgetting the name of
oh,
it, but it's
see, now you piqued
amazing.
my interest.
That's
Now
how I
you just
get
piqued
you.
it
I
right there.
get
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I get you
Throw
with
out Black Thought. Yeah, one of the top MCs. I'm
let
just
me
looking back at some of the music that we've reviewed this year.
Crowns for King. Crowns for Kings came out in 2019. Benny the
Okay.
Butcher featuring Black Thought.
Okay. All right. That's next on the list. Um, yeah, I mean, based upon all the albums that came out this year, I would say this is the best album of the year. I mean, I'm looking at the ones I liked it better than Cowboy Carter. That came out this year, right? Or was that last
Yeah.
year?
No, that came out this year.
Yeah, I like it better than Cowboy Carter. Um, yeah, and there really hasn't been that much hip hop. I feel like albums are hard to come out now as well too. Like we're gonna kind of get into a whole nother topic, but like everyone's just kind of dropping singles because that's kind of the way the industry is shifted with attention spans being so low. So I feel like it's really nice to see Lupe drop an album too. Like I don't know the next time I'm gonna release an album because like it just makes more sense to just do singles from a industry standpoint based upon what you get from it, based upon how much it takes to put out and all of that. Like the only thing that you
Mhm.
save on is the cover art because you only have to make one for a whole album. And that's like,
Mhm.
okay, but comparatively, if I release a single, you know, it can get until you build like a really big fan base, that's when you can really do albums like that. But yeah, I mean, I would say I don't see any album that's come out this year that's touching Samurai right now.
I think for me it's probably going to end up in my top 10 by the end of the year. Cuz
Yeah.
this year has I will say there has been a lot of albums that have come out this year that I've been loving. Whether we've talked about them on this podcast or not, there's a lot I'm listening to as well that I'm really loved. And when we get to that time of the year, I can't wait to delve into it further. But this is definitely a really strong outing from this year.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, I know, and we just did Brat, of course, and so I know that's probably your
That's
number one
probably
album of this year right now.
that is definitely my number one right now.
Yeah,
Who knows? The Chili Peppers could shadow drop something tomorrow, and then that would take
and then we got to restart this whole
and then we
conversation.
gotta, yep.
Yeah. I mean, I also feel like I haven't been seeing I haven't been hearing about albums coming out. Like the last thing I heard was Cowboy Carter, and I didn't even listen to Taylor Swift's new album because I heard it wasn't that great. Billie Eilish released a new album, and I haven't really heard much about that. Yeah, I don't know. I think this one is just like it takes the cake.
It's it is I see
I was like, I was waiting for you to
I
get
saw
it.
what you
I was
did
like, he's
there.
gonna get it soon.
It
Yeah.
took a second. It took a second. To go back to something that we were talking about before about like the jazz rap like influence on this album, thinking about it, something, and this is just a very raw thought that came to me during here. I wonder if, because if you think about like some of the greats in jazz rap, just, they're not always just solo artists, they are groups.
Yeah.
And I wonder if like by nature, jazz rap just works better on the production end, having multiple people to switch up different kinds of flows to kind of intercut it. Because Lupe is like notorious for being an artist that doesn't always have a lot of features. Like he takes
Hmm.
on a lot of projects solo, with maybe a feature here and there. It's much more sparse. And so I wonder having a full album, which there's no features on this album, right?
No, I
I
think
don't
feature.
think
Yeah,
so.
I think I
So
would
I
agree
wonder
with
if
you
that
there. I
help
think that would have helped.
makes it
Yeah.
feel a little bit more less unique because it's just the same flow on every track.
And I mean, you hit the nail on the head, really. Because I mean, the Roots obviously was a group. Black Thought would always
Hmm.
switch it up. Like if you're doing jazz, if you're playing jazz by yourself, that's not jazz. Like
Hmm.
it's really like a piano player could do it really well. So I shouldn't say like it's not really jazz, but like a huge aspect of jazz
Collaborate.
is collaboration, working with other people. Like
Hmm.
me as a saxophone player, like I have some gigs that are solo sax gigs, but I would not call those jazz gigs. Like I might play a couple of jazz standards, but
Hmm.
like it's really not jazz because I'm not collaborating. I'm not listening to what I hear on the piano and trying to play it back or anything like that. It's just me.
Right.
And that's a huge aspect of jazz, which is why it's a huge aspect of jazz rap or hip hop jazz, which is why, some of the crazy Roots albums, Do You Want More? As well as Tribe Called Quest, who's known for pioneering their sound. And the Roots were more like that was closer to hip hop jazz because that was like live jazz. They have, Questlove playing the drums and have the bassist and everything. And for
Hmm.
Tribe Called Quest, they tracked a lot of their stuff. Like they would produce it and then go lay down their verses on the beats.
Hmm.
So, but even that aspect, you had Q-Tip, you had Fife Dog,
Hmm.
you had, all these guys that would I'm forgetting the third rapper's name. I don't know why, but they brought in Consequence for one album. I think Consequence was featured on like six different tracks. And
Hmm.
then
Busta
you look
Rhymes.
at, yeah, Busta Rhymes, of course. And then guys that kind of took that sound because some of those guys were also from the Soulquarian sound, like Talib Kweli, Mos Def, now
Hmm.
Yasin Bey, Common, who he's not really known for jazz rap, but he does do it a lot. But all those
Hmm.
guys, their albums are always chock full of features.
Right.
Always, every single one. I think Yasin Bey is the only one who's not really doing a lot of collaborations right now.
Hmm.
But early, like his album Black on the Both Sides, I think only had like four collaborations. But Talib Kweli's albums always have, and he's gotten further away from jazz rap, kind of like he doesn't really do it as much anymore. He could still kill it if he did.
Hmm.
But yeah, like if this was a joint album with Lupe and Talib Kweli,
Hmm.
like
Hey,
whole
come
other
on.
level,
Come on now. Don't be
whole other
putting
level.
ideas in my head. Don't be putting ideas in my
Oh,
head. Now
um,
you're gonna make me disappointed if I don't hear the Philip Quelly and Lupe combo.
Yeah, and I don't think every song needed a feature, but I think you're right. I
No.
think if he had a few sprinkled in here or there, a couple of guest verses here and there, or even guest singers, I think it would have helped. And there's a rapper who's been coming up who doesn't have a whole lot, Daylight. He's a because I know Lupe doesn't
Hmm.
always like to work with like the big name guys, the guys that have been like Lupe's not going to go get J. Cole or get Kendrick or get, one of those guys to feature on his record because and he could, but he just won't. Like, like he has the ability to, Chance the Rapper or anyone like that, but he just won't because I think he likes working with more underground rappers and stuff like that. Like the biggest rappers he's done a song with on his songs were Jay-Z and Snoop Dogg, and that's it.
Mhm.
That's it. And
Mhm.
he's never done another song with them again. And it's probably just because of the way the industry changes and stuff like that. But I think he likes working. Like if you look at Chopper, all those guys, like you don't really you don't they're not household names, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
he doesn't like doing, but he also has the ability to work with household names, like when he did the song with Rick Ross and Big Crit.
Mhm.
He did multiple songs with them actually. So yeah, I think just a couple of features here and there. I mean, like Ty Dolla Sign could have sung a hook. They have a great
They have a
working
really good,
collaboration. Yeah.
yeah.
um I know he would have loved to bring out Absol. Like that would have been absolutely fire.
I
Like
just
I mentioned, Daylight is a guy coming up who absolutely crushed going back and forth with Absol on Pi,
uh
I think is what it's called,
that
from
track
Mike the
on,
Theater.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
I've
one of the
heard.
few songs this year that I have been in constant rotation. I listen to that song like maybe once a week because it's just so good.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Um, Pie. Yeah, it was Pie.
Definitely the best part of Might Delete Later, might even be the only good part
The
of
only
Might
good
Delete
part?
Later. I'm like, I feel blasphemous to say that, but I think J.
No, it's
Cole has
good.
accepted it for himself as well.
You could
So,
say it. I have
yeah,
not really touched Might Delete Later since it came out,
since it came out, yeah.
but
Um, but yeah, no, I think you really did hit it. I think if this jazz rap lends itself a lot to collaboration, and it
mhm,
doesn't sound like it does, like you don't really think about it, but because like I'm trying to think, like Tribe Called Quest could drop a whole jazz rap album, like they did multiple times, and the
mhm.
era was different. Like for someone to drop a jazz rap album now is probably rooted in nostalgia. Like if Tribe Called Quest was to drop one right now, it's rooted in the fans that they've built. Like it probably wouldn't help them get new fans, if you know what I mean.
Sure, it's not necessarily a hot genre for.
Right, right. Yeah. So like in this album, and this is why I love Samurai too, because I feel like this album is for Lupe fans. Like Lupe's not
Mhm,
making this album to attract new fans. He's
mhm,
doing it to give people Lupe, to give them, because I personally think that Lupe sounds the best on jazz rap. He sounds the
mhm.
best on jazzier beats, that the thumping hip hop boom bap, like that's where his lyrical ability shines through, and I think that's just the best he's ever sounded. Like for me, even like if I'm freestyling, if you give me a groovy jazz rap beat, I will do way better than any other beat. And a lot of times I don't even have to think about it. It's just part of what like intrinsically comes, and like lines and stuff
Mhm.
will start coming to me when I add a little bit of swing to it, like almost like whoa, almost knocked over a whole
Oh,
situation here.
you're swinging too hard.
They're swinging too hard. um, when you add a little bit of like swing to your verses and stuff, like that's
Mhm.
when it can really come across.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that he sounds the best on that, and I think he knows it too. And so he
Mhm.
decided to make a whole album. And I think you're right. I think some features would have made this album stand out um a little bit more. Like a track like
Mhm.
Palaces doesn't need features, but a track like Mumble Rap probably could have used one. Maybe even Number One. Just those tracks are just kind of about like rapping just to rap. You know what I mean?
Cake
Probably
could
could have
really
used some.
used a feature. As much as I enjoy
Yeah,
it, that
I
song
agree.
lends itself, I think, really well to throw someone else in for a verse. Cause like they
I
just
mean, I'm available.
we got King Will right here.
I had to. I had to. Um, yeah. So I mean, Lupe, if you hear this, it's not too late to make a remix of Samurai and just bring all your homies out. We know you know some people. I mean, Chicago's a big city.
Hmm.
There's some underground rappers there that I'm sure would crush it. Um, so yeah, yeah. And so are there any other themes or anything from this album that you really got?
Um, I I liked the storytelling aspect of this. 'Cause I got this vibe, at least from like the front half of the album, where he's telling the story about this woman who, from interviews, we can see is heavily inspired by Amy Winehouse,
Which
uh,
is crazy.
and might
Yeah.
even be Amy Winehouse. I don't know enough about. She's kind of a blind spot in my musical knowledge, so I don't know everything. So I don't know if it is exactly her or if it's just heavily inspired from. But I get this story of a woman who discovers she is able to rap, and he raps about it like it's a superpower, and then she goes and she starts using it. She starts using her powers for her good.
Yeah, like I read that interview and I was like, because like if you know Lupe Fiasco, if you follow him on Instagram or stuff, he's always posting pictures about him being like a shogun in Japan with swords. Like he probably has like a couple hundred swords just laying around in his house
Mm,
everywhere because he's
mm,
always posting about it.
mm.
And like he loves anime, which I mean, imagine if me and Lupe just like sat around watching anime. That sounds like a good day
Do
right
you
there.
watch anime?
I watch some. I'm not as into it as my brother is, but I do watch
Hmm.
some. Like,
Oh,
I've watched My Hero Academia. I'm meaning to get into One Piece. I've watched Attack on Titan. Some of like, like not just Pokemon.
you've been
That
meaning to
doesn't
get
count as
into One
anime.
Piece? That's
Yeah, One
we'll
Piece
need to
is a
talk
lot.
about this at a separate
At a
time.
separate
I did not
podcast.
know
Okay,
that. I did
okay,
not know that.
yeah, okay. All right, all right, all right. We'll have to do that on a separate one. But like he's so like he was talking about in the interview that he's like, yeah, this album was inspired because Amy Winehouse said that she's like a samurai when it comes to battle rap, and I was like, what? What are you
What?
talking about? Amy Winehouse is a battle rapper, like not just a rapper, a battle
A battle
rapper.
rapper, which is a super specific
Yes,
skill set.
yes, and I'm like, where is this? Why do you only know this? Why does no one else like? Why do I not know this? And I guess that's where he kind of got the concept for samurai from. And I always thought that samurai was like a concept because it was like something that Lupe had come up with in his own head. You know what I mean? Because he's very like Japanese culture like influences a lot of the things that he does and is interested in, like so I wouldn't have been surprised if like the album name Samurai doesn't surprise me because I know Lupe is very interested in samurais and like Japanese
Mhm.
like you. Oh, I didn't even I didn't even highlight your name change. That's very very applicable. Shogun.
Oh yeah,
Shogun Tai.
I
Shogun
thought it was
Tai.
appropriate too.
Yeah. No, it definitely works. So yeah, and so to see that is like what? Like Amy Winehouse? So I feel like
It's
I have to
surprising.
listen to it.
It makes me want to watch the documentary that he was watching that gave him the inspiration for it.
Hmm.
2015's Amy. Um,
Yeah.
Never seen it. Honestly, hadn't even heard of it. Again, she is such a huge blind spot in my musical knowledge that I know nothing. So maybe it would be a good idea.
Well, like we
Check it
found
out.
out, apparently Back to Black is one of the top 10 best albums of all time. And I'm like, maybe Lupe agrees with that? I don't know. I'll have to
Maybe we
ask
got to
him.
rectify that.
Next time I see him, I'll just ask him.
Yeah, next time
Um,
you're having dinner with him.
Next time we're watching anime, I'll just be like, hey, so what'd you think about Back to Black?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I just I'm so like blown away by the fact that like that was the big inspiration for this album. So I feel like I need to read the because I read the interview after I listened to the album. So now I need to read the interview again, go watch the documentary, and then listen to the album again to see if it gives me like any new perspectives now that I know that it was like influenced by Amy
Oh,
Winehouse.
and even like taking inspiration for like battle rapping, all the more reason to get like Absol on a track, you know? Like
Yes.
like a very talented battle rapper, throw him on a track if the album is like heavily inspired by,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the thing that keeps it like all of these thoughts keep it from being like peak Lupe for me. Like these are the kinds of things that hold it back. Is it feels like it is very tight and concise, but because it's Lupe and I know what this man is capable of, it doesn't feel like he went all out. And in some aspects, like the ideas feel just like not quite baked, just a touch underbaked. And it keeps it from reaching the levels of greatness that, in 10 years time, when we have like a couple more Lupe albums under our belt, I don't think this one will necessarily stand the test of time
Mhm.
overall.
And like, I mean, Absol is one of those guys that I feel like Lupe could say, "Hey, I need you on this," and he'll be like, "What time? When?"
Yeah.
Like, you send me the track, I'll send you a verse the next day. Like,
Hmm.
because again, Lupe Fiasco is one of Absol's influences. Like he says that
Hmm.
all the time. So getting to
Hmm.
work with him, and like I said, if you listen to Horns and Thorns, which is a trap song by them, it's like I absolutely would love to have a jazz rap song of them going back and forth, just like they did on Thorns and Horns, and
Hmm.
just playing those back to back it'd just be lit. Like it would just be so like, yeah, I agree. I think a couple of features, like I said, I mentioned Daylight, Absol. I'm trying to think of like more underground guys who don't get a lot of attention. Like, I don't know if Coda the Friend and Lupe Fiasco like really intersect that much in fan base wise, but Coda the Friend would be a monster on any of these beats, and he's
For
also a
you,
very
for
underground
for
guy.
you for sure. I'm not
Yeah, I
sure
know.
if
Yeah,
like the
most
greater
yeah. Most Lupe and Coda friends probably don't intersect that much. I mean, for me, it just kind of happens to work out that way.
the Venn
Um,
diagram isn't they're very far apart.
but after hearing him on some Static Selector beats, I mean, like you could hear it. Like, you
Hmm.
could hear it. So yeah, I think that would have I think that's kind of if I had to say this album is missing anything, because I still think it's a great album. I do think because like the feature on Number One Headband was so good. I think it was the same girl who sang on I think her name is Nayira, and she was
Oh
on
yeah.
Autobotto and a
She was on
couple of
that.
tracks on Drill Music and Zion.
Yeah, I think she was on like two or three of them.
It doesn't list her as a feature, but I'm pretty sure that was her singing because man, did her voice sound amazing, and it sounded really, really familiar. Um, and I think she's just an artist in Chicago. And so I think that's another thing too. Like Lupe Fiasco, I think he's working with a lot of people in Chicago right now. Um, there's a music video for it, so I'm like, is that girl the same one? Um, I'd have to find the credits for the album. Okay, credits, writer, producers. Yeah, it just tells me the mixing engineer and the mastering engineer. It doesn't really tell me anything else. All right. Let me see if I can go to the Wikipedia page and they'll say if it Samurai Lupe. um yeah, it said inspired by the life and legacy of British singer Amy Winehouse, Lupe Fiasco created the concept of her becoming a battle rapper. And
Hmm.
this is definitely the perfect instrumental for her, like if you're gonna make an album that shows Amy Winehouse as a battle rapper, it's got to be jazz rap. There's no other option. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like there's no other option. Um, he collaborates with Crystal Torres a lot, trumpet, flute, flugelhorn. Um, and she was on Little Death, and I love the collaboration he has with Crystal Torres. Like I feel like she's become one of those musicians that he'll just call out and she'll just show up, lay it down, and make it sound amazing. Um, so yeah, I don't think I guess it wasn't her. I guess it wasn't Naira because on Number One Headband it says the background vocals were Love More and Lage, who
Hmm.
are two artists I haven't heard of before. So
Hmm. But
I
again,
guess
another
not.
nice thing about Lupe is he introduces you to people that makes you want to check him out.
Yeah, I know. Like I'm gonna have to go look them up and see how the rest of their music is. So, um, yeah, and I think it was really interesting too. And Lupe also mentioned that like this album was kind of like a weekend thing. Because in the interview he said that like he's working a 9 to 5 now. And I was like, that's crazy. Cause it's like, I thought rap was your 9 to 5. Like, you're Lupe Fiasco. Like, what
Hmm.
else? The world needs you to continue rapping. Like,
Hmm.
like that's your career. And I don't know if it's like out of, just wanting to do something different. Like, there are football players who will retire all the time
Hmm.
and go back to school or go get a job doing whatever their degree was in because they just want to. They don't really have to, they don't really need to, So
Hmm.
I don't think Lupe like necessarily needs to work like the 9 to 5. I think he just does it because it's something that he enjoys. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, he mentioned that like he kind of just put this album together on the weekend, and he put it together on the weekend, and he just kind of, so I think maybe that contributed to why there's not as many features and stuff on it, because it's kind of was like you say, if he was always putting
Like
it together on like if he was trying to
a
balance it with
solo
his nine to
more.
five,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit tougher because sometimes people like to get guys in the studio too, which can be tougher to coordinate if your only time available is the weekends. So, I mean, nowadays, you can collaborate. Like any collaboration I've done, I send the tracks off, get them sent back to me, do my own little mixing to it, and put it out. So I've collaborated with people like in London, LA, different parts all over the country, just because you can just send people stuff. But I know,
Oh,
like again, back in the day, you kind of need to. Yeah, I didn't tell you that.
no, you did. I'm just
Okay. Oh, okay.
I collaborate with people in London,
Yeah,
all across the world.
shameless plug. I mean, Jackson
You know
Mathod,
how
amazing
it
trumpet
is.
player. Yeah, yeah, you get it. So, yeah, I just think that's incredibly interesting.
Hmm.
And yeah, so like, because Lupe was talking about in that same interview, he was like, yeah, he's like, so I work a 9 to 5. And I don't know if that's I don't think that's his MIT teaching job. It might be, but I'm like, man, I would literally like reapply. I'm like, how can I go audit that class?
I was about to say you could just audit it.
I'm like, I guess I got to figure that out. Like, because that is something I would totally do. And actually, my wife is she has to go on a business trip in September. So that might be the perfect time for me to go find out how do I do that,
So
because that
catch
would
us
be
on the
amazing.
next episode while we brainstorm
Yes. How am I
King
going to
Whale
audit
getting
one of
into
Lupe's
MIT.
classes? King Will getting into MIT. Um, yeah, so that would be, but I'm like, I also like, I kind of want a paper to be graded by Lupe Fiasco. Like, I want
Hmm.
my tests to say like A plus Lupe. So like, maybe I gotta apply to MIT.
That's the
Like,
next leg of this
all
journey.
all I gotta say is like, if I was in high school and you told me that you can get into if you get into MIT, you'll be taking classes from Lupe,
Hmm.
I would have worked way harder. Like, way harder. I would have put in way more effort, GPA, community service, whatever it takes, I
Uh-huh.
would have done. Like 100%. But anyway, and I also don't understand like why MIT. But anyway, okay, moving on.
That's a
Um,
again, that's a
the whole nother thing.
do you have any like kind of closing thoughts about
Um,
Samurai?
well, I just remember Lupe saying that like on his interview that he was like, yeah, I mean, I don't he's like, I'm not really worried about like how big I am, or he's not really worried about like furthering his career. Like he seems very content with the fan base that he has, and he's
Hmm.
giving them what they want. And that's what he's doing. And
Hmm.
a lot of artists have kind of shifted to that model because the if you're assigned to a music label, they're always going to be talking about how can we get you new fans? We're going to branch you out and get you new fans. And that's what happened to Lasers. And at this point, Lupe's like, I love the fans I have. I'm giving them what they want. They want Samurai. Here's Samurai. I'm going to
Hmm.
give them what they want. And that's how I'm going to continue making music. Like, and there are a lot of artists that are big right now that are branching out to other fans. Like, a lot of people are becoming fans of Sabrina Carpenter right now. And again, Lupe is like, I'm not worried about all that. I'm just giving my fans what they want. Cause he's like, to me, like, he's like, when I was building my career, Jay-Z told me, hey, you're nice. He's like, and I'm done. He's like, that was all I
Hmm.
needed to hear. I could have retired right then. Jay-Z told me
Hmm.
I was nice. That's it. That's all I need to hear. And I'm like, it's funny because it's like I feel the same way, but for Lupe. Like if Lupe was
Hmm.
ever like, you're nice. If I get that seal of approval, if I get an A plus on my MIT paper, I'll be like, I'm done. I am a success. I have conquered it all. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's my only closing thought. Samurai is a fantastic album. Listen to it. It's definitely the album of the year for me. Maybe when we get to the end of the year, we'll revisit, but I feel like I haven't listened to enough albums that came out this year to like give an accurate list. Um, so I need to like brush up on those.
Well,
Um,
that's what you got a whole year. We got a whole year to listen
yeah.
to music.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So yeah, maybe we'll revisit that at the end to see if it still stands true, but as of right now, definitely the best hip hop album, and to me the best album of the year. So,
High praise. It's very solid. If you like Lupe Fiasco, you will love this. It
mhm.
probably won't, if you've been on the fence about him, it's probably not gonna win you over.
Yep.
But man, is it for Lupe fans? It's more Lupe and it's great.
Like my wife, this would not be an album for her. She doesn't get
No.
Lupe at all, which is so funny. I'm like, how do you get me so well, but you don't get him? I'm
It's
like, I
just
am him.
I
Like,
good
uh,
thing she keeps you humble, man.
yeah,
Like
yeah, obviously,
she
obviously.
keeps you, she levels you back down.
Brings me back down. So yeah, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Did you like Samurai? Do you feel like it was missing anything? Um, yeah. And I guess we'll see you next time. I don't think we knew what album we're doing next week. So if you have any suggestions, throw them out there. I know pretty soon Childish Gambino is going to be doing Bando Stone. So we're gonna have to
Mhm.
listen to that and review that one.
Which have you heard the single?
No, I've only seen the trailer for the movie.
Oh, he released a single
He released a single? Man,
and
there's
it's rock.
interesting because he's coming to
It's
Raleigh, and like I would love to go to his concert, but like Willow is opening for him, and like that literally made me like I think her recently I heard a song by her, and I think her music is like very different now. But I'm like the fact that she's opening for him made me be like I don't think I'm gonna go all the way out to Raleigh for that because
what?
I know
You
I think back to like the whip my hair back and forth days and like anything that she's done
Oh,
after
come
that
on.
I haven't heard her latest stuff. So like I feel like I probably need to give it a second chance to see like if I'm really willing to go out to Raleigh because it's not that far from here, but um
She like reinvents herself like every couple of years.
yeah.
It's a very she's she is doing her own thing. Not to turn this into a Willow episode,
Mm-hmm.
but like Willow follows her own path and it's very like I enjoy it. I think it's very interesting watching her career because it's kind of like Jaden as well with his music where they just kind of do what they want because they have the freedom and the ability to just do whatever they're feeling. And so like it doesn't always click, but it always kind of feels like a vibe because it's just them doing what like it feels like SoundCloud music that has been put on greater exposure.
Hmm. Well, he's gonna be in Raleigh on August 30th, and he's gonna be in Tampa and then Sunrise in Florida on September 4th and 5th. So that'll give me some time to see exactly what you mean by that, and maybe I'll end up at one of those. Maybe we'll end up together. Who knows?
Who knows?
Thank you guys so much for listening. And again, this was about Lupe. This was about Samurai. Fantastic album. Go listen to it.
Go
And we'll
listen to
see you
it.
next time. We will see you guys next time.
Until then.